I could have your attention. I'd like to call to order the public hearing scheduled for 6:45 p.m. on October 18th, 2021. Clerk, would you please read the notice? Fooled it.
Would you like me to call the roll first?
Yeah, why don't you call the roll?
Member Fonte?
Present.
Member Soretta?
Present.
Member Revolt?
Present.
Member Foltz? Here. Member Warren?
Here.
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Peters is absent. 6 present.
We have a motion to excuse Member Peters.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Now, would you please read the notice?
The purpose of this meeting is to receive public input on Ordinance 43-2021, which proposes allowing light poles up to 30 feet tall as a conditional use in the Main Street North Gateway zoning district. Any person wishing to address council is welcome to speak.
Very good. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? If you do, would you please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address?
My name is Karen Benfield, 915 Emerson Avenue Northwest, here in North Canton, Ohio. I am in favor of this much. It could be this much. I would love to see LED streetlights in our city, even the decorative ones. I am not an illuminating engineer, but I've done some research. There are some beautiful benefits. It would also appeal, I believe, to investors, to showing that we're upgrading our lighting and moving forward and being sustainable with our energy use by cutting, emissions, because all that electricity we're using is mostly coming from fossil fuel burning sources. There are any number of cities that have done this. It's a process. It costs money. Sometimes there's grants available. Here in our area of Ohio, we belong as Ohioans to the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance out of Chicago. And they have information about municipal solid-state street lighting. There's a consortium. There are great values to be. I don't know if we own our poles. I don't know how we pay our electricity. But I do understand that when you go through these conversions, you do need to talk to the electrical provider because it cuts in to their money, So sometimes rates change for the better, but they change. So also when you do these conversions, with all the technology that's changed now, it's not always necessary to have 30-foot poles. Bend, Oregon has done it on their existing light poles, their wooden poles. Okay. So it has more to do, like they were saying in this, the Planning Commission or whoever wanted to look at the parameters of the lighting. It has more to do with that than anything else, which way the light is shining, what the Kelvin temperature is, and all these nice little factors that illuminating engineers know, and there are people who are authorized to provide that information in conjunction with that. I think it would be beautiful. It'll provide a more even light at a lower temperature. They say these high pressure sodiums, they're like about, I think, over 3,000 K, and these will be like 2,500 K. So you're using less energy. The color rendering index is different. It's going to be a clearer light. It's not going to be that orange. The safety forces are going to love it because you'll have better color renditioning. And if the lights are designed, if we pick up the lights properly, you'll have more even lighting without these great dark spots. So with that, I'm all for LED lighting. In one section, I am not for it. Because when I drive past there right now, I see our beautiful decorative lights that we have. They're 360 degrees, and the parking lot lights that are surrounding it are so much taller, and there's no consistency in that. it looks like the Wild West of lighting, you know? So I think our whole lighting schedule and ordinances and suggestions needs to be modified to bring us up to the 21st century, and rather than doing piecemeals. If you want to do piecemeal, do the street light outside my house. Yeah? Because I am confident the right LED lamp there would prevent all the light that's spilling into my house right now. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion, Dominic. I went over to Acme's to look, but it wasn't nighttime yet, so I couldn't see how the lighting distribution was.
If you want to see a good comparison, go up to Green, Maslin Road, and go into their parking lot. They have 30-foot lights. It's fabulous. And this is, like what you're talking about is true across the board, but we're just starting in this area that's not going to intrude or make people nervous because of residential. It's more commercial. But in the long run, you know, the way those lights we have now, they have a blocker on it supposed to accentuate the light this way or that way, but it's kind of creates more light pollution instead of a downlight. And what we're talking about really is downlighting over there in the commercial area. And the purpose really what got this whole thing started, in my opinion, is because, you know, the people that are trying to spend money to improve their real estate, to create more revenue because you have happier tenants, save energy and all those other things we talked about, it would save them money because they would need less light poles because it's up a little higher and it projects, because it's projected down.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if that would actually be a fact.
It is a fact.
I don't know. I
It
no,
is a
I know-
fact.
I
You
know-
don't need to be an
I know
engineer.
the height and the lamp do make a difference, but I don't know in that situation.
If
I
you-
think more regularity in our lighting.
Well, this specific thing we're talking about is really in the district, it's not our residential sector. But
no.
in the long run, I think the lighting, we talked about switching them to LEDs anyhow, and they're 27K in the light scale instead of the bright white, like on, you know, Maple, for example, or where Washington University is. If you look down the main corridor, you'll see a little mix of lights.
Right.
But we've been trying to switch them as we go to that little bit lighter, but the lid on top lets all that light out instead of pushing it down. Maybe down the road we can do all that and make it way more efficient.
Well, I understand, yeah, and that's why I was suggesting some of these alliances and things as the city goes forward, you know, and it would also appeal to myself, I'm an old lady, but, you know, the younger people really do have a strong interest in the environment and sustainability. And I think it would upgrade the whole appearance of the city, you know, to have, you know, the LED lighting. And it wouldn't just attract, you know, those current businesses. It would be, I think it would be beautiful.
I agree.
It would take a big commitment. It would take a committee probably, sorry, Mr. Wilder, but it would probably, but I think in the long run it would be beneficial. Thank you.
I
So
think,
am
I think we
for it.
should sign you up.
I would love to be involved in that, but I think, and I thank you for even putting that forward, because that's the first time I've heard of, what? Something halfway sustainable in our city, nothing just for more cars to go through, you know? So,
Yeah, but go up there to Maslin and check it out sometime so you see what it really
well, my
looks like.
problem is, yeah, and I would love
I'll
to.
pick you up and take you.
Thank you, because that's
So you
my
don't have to
problem.
worry about the dark.
Thank you, because I had to take my sister out to Barberton Suma this morning at 6 a.m., and that was an adventure.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
But thanks for your input.
thank you.
Thank you.
I think it should be a go, expanded.
Absolutely, I agree.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? For or against? Seeing none, I'll declare this public hearing closed.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Where are we here? We got 5 minutes.
5 whole minutes?
Why don't we get it done?
It's at 7. Council. It is Monday, October 18th. It is approximately 7 p.m. Clerk, would you please call the order? Or would you please call the roll?
Member Schroeder?
Here.
Member Waring? Here. Member Foltz? Here. Member Volt?
Here.
Member Strata?
Here.
Member Fonte?
Here.
Good, you all came back. Member Peters is absent. Six
Never
present.
It's been moved. Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? He's a happy man. What I'd like to do with council's opinion or permission this evening is to adjust the agenda slightly, and I would like to take 4C last. That's the budget. I want to move through everything, and then the last item will be the budget. If that's agreeable, could I have a motion to do that?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's go on to community and economic development. First item up is to authorize legislation for next Monday night on the lighting regulations that we have discussed for the North Gateway. What we want to do is authorize the height to go up per Dominic's request. We've heard no significant opposition.
So from 25 to 30 feet, right?
Yes. Are there any comments about that or questions? Seeing none, then can I have a motion to have this placed on the agenda for Monday night?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done, good. Second item is, as you know, we have had a discussion about fences at swimming pools. We have a recommendation that has come back from the Planning Commission. There are three components to the Planning Commission's recommendation. The first is that we take the fence height down from 5 to 4 feet. And the rationale is that 4 feet is the common industry standard for fencing. However, the Planning Commission also recommended that we do two other things. First of all is, and Marty, I'll have you jump in here after I'm done, if need be. What we'd like to do is, if you look at page 9, section 1D2, what we'd like to do is eliminate or strike D2 from the existing ordinance. And basically what that says, if you've got an above-ground pool and the lip is 4 feet, you basically don't have to have a fence. And so what we want to do is require fences for all pools. So we would strike that. So we're going to have 4-foot fence, strike for above, as it impacts above-ground pools, you have to have a fence. And then second, what we'd like to do, or the Planning Commission is recommending, is that we go down to section D4 and strike plant materials as a substitute for fencing. In other words, you have to have a fence, not a shrub. That is section D14. So those are the recommendations from the Planning Commission. And all we need to do tonight, according to my notes, is set a public hearing for these three recommendations.
So what happens, Marty, Marty's turn?
Yeah, Marty.
What happens, Marty, if somebody already has a pool? Does this all get grandfathered in, or all these people who have above ground pool got to go out and get fences, and those who have bushes, what happens to all those folks?
The existing pools would be covered under 1159 for non-conforming structures. So as long as there's no changes to those pools, they could remain as they were installed, provided they were permitted. So the exception to that, of course, is if the pool was installed without a permit, they would not be grandfathered in.
That would never happen here, right?
Never.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank God for weekends.
Any,
Just for clarification, is this in-ground pools and above-ground pools?
yes.
That's correct.
So if one neighbor puts in an above-ground pool, the only requirement we have next door is that they have to put a 4-foot fence up.
Not yet.
Not yet, it was 5 foot. Down, right?
Well, here's what they're saying, is if you've got an above-ground pool, okay, you're gonna measure your fence height from the ground to the lip of the pool. So right now, if it's up 5 feet, you don't have to worry about a fence, correct, Marty? Yeah,
Correct.
The above-ground
Of
pool.
the lip of the above-ground pool. So what the planning commission's recommending is that we strike that provision and say, everybody's gotta have a fence.
Okay, well, I agree with that. I'm just, is it gonna, are you gonna be able to see over the fence, or are you still gonna have some privacy? Either the neighbor doesn't have a pool, or the property owner does have a pool. Is that 4 foot gonna be, is that gonna be sufficient?
4 foot's the minimum.
Exactly,
Hey, I got a
You
question.
go 5.
yeah.
But 5's not a standard fence height, right? So that's why people were asking
Exactly.
4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot increments, depending on the zoning, on fencing, on side yard, your rear yards, front yards, so forth.
Yeah, so in the residential, 6 foot's the max height. Theoretically, they could place a 6-foot fence around, assuming, exactly, yeah.
Hey, Marty, on let's say a above-ground pool, 4 foot tall, I still got to put a fence up. Is that what you're thinking?
With these recommendations, that's
So,
correct.
like, what's the purpose? I mean, like, 4 foot doesn't do anything because it's 4 foot high already, except for access to the deck or the ladder. I mean, obviously, you can't leave your ladder out so someone can climb up it, but it's not like a in-ground pool where you could trip and fall in, or a baby could fall in, To me, my opinion is that makes sense. Above-ground pools doesn't make sense. But if you happen to have a deck around it, then you'd have to have a gate locked so no one can walk up there. That would just be my real estate experience idea.
That makes more sense. What was the meaning behind that? Do you remember when they brought that into place? Because what he says is the reason why they don't have pools is that most in-ground or above ground are 4 feet above ground. So kids, the whole reason for a fence is so kids don't just wander off. You and I talked about this, and all of a sudden, boom. Or even an animal, boom, in the pool, or a dog or something like that. Where on an above ground pool, I don't know what the purpose of that is, but I understand the extra safety. Just it's a lot of cost for something that I'm not sure about.
I agree with it. I think maybe just the above-ground pool. I mean, ideally, everybody should have an in-ground pool, I guess, with a screened area. But since we're not in Florida, I guess, to be realistic, you would just want it to be safe. If it's a 4-footer, I think that would be acceptable unless there's some reason I'm missing. And then if there's a deck or something, you have to have that protected.
We can deliberate on this at a later time.
Okay.
All we're going to do tonight is set a public hearing.
Okay, so I
That's
think
good.
So that's
all.
all
Those are
we
good
need to
points.
do, and Marty will be back to us
Thanks, Mark.
with the rationale.
My pleasure, absolutely.
We can talk about it some more.
Come on,
At our
Stefan,
public
let's talk about pickleball.
All right, what is the date and time, Mr. Young, for our public hearing?
The earliest we could do it is November 22nd, and for
Thanks.
you lovely folks, that is also the latest you can do it, unless you're going to call a special meeting, because that is the end of your term.
So let's do it November 22nd then. And then we'll punt this to new council. Perfect.
6:45?
6:45. Very good. All right, next on the agenda are 2 brief items from Finance and Property. Stephanie?
Okay, so if you remember last year, and so again, we're going to do A and B, and then we're going to come back and do C. So last year, in December, we had a call from our finance director saying, hey, there's some different monies we have to allocate, and we haven't come back. And a lot of us didn't remember having to do that in the past, because we had already taken care of that. So this enables her to close those books at that time, and we won't have to be in a panic at that moment. Correct, Jeanette?
Yes.
Any questions?
we get a motion to place this on the agenda?
Yeah, I wish it was on the agenda.
It's been moved. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll second it. Very good. Okay.
Okay, and then we've been talking about the certifying the necessary levies from the county auditor, and we are good to go. And we can also put this on the agenda.
There's a motion. I will make the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Let's move on to personnel and safety. Dom, do you want a hand? We're gonna come back to
This is the handbook.
Yes.
So I think we have a handout here we can look at somewhere. Patrick, are you going to talk on the handbook?
Yes. So I think what you're referring to is in your packet as the Chapter 155.
Personnel.
We have both.
Personnel regulations.
Personnel regulations and the handbook. So as it relates specifically to the handbook, this is a project that began when I became the administrator in 2018, and myself and Deputy Director Farina, and then the finance director and deputy finance director at that time worked on that. In addition, we hired Clemens and Nelson to consult with to help us put together a personnel manual and regulations that fit our current operating environment. The last time that the personnel manual had been substantially touched was in 2011, so it's been 10 years. And there's been a lot, and what was there wasn't changed to really kind of suit the current environment. So as personnel changes came, this project stuck. Gina came on board. We went back and revisited it. Also ran it through Krugliak, Wilkins, our law department. So between Clemens and Nelson's, Krugliak, and a number of us looking at it, we've come up with what we believe is a current relevant personnel policy and procedure manual. And I'll let Catherine, do you want to add some of the finer points to that?
Well, just that, as Patrick mentioned, we engaged with Krugliak, and we had Scott Zurkowski, who is an attorney who specializes in employment law. So he has that specialty. And he was able to review and see where there are areas maybe that we were at exposure for not having clear policies on that you need today for proper personnel management. So in comparison, if you've seen the old handbook, which was missing many policies and then sort of photocopied and things added, it wasn't organized and it wasn't up to date. So we have the most up-to-date policies covering, topics that are very important around, discrimination, nepotism, non-fraternization. We put a little more teeth into an attendance policy because, the city is so rich with sick time. I think in the past it didn't have a strong enough policy to really manage any abuse of that. Not saying there's a lot, because we have a lot of great employees, but if you do have anyone that is, a supervisor or manager needs a little more guidance. So that's what this is. It's a living, breathing document. Make it available to all employees, both hard copy and electronically. And then any amendments that would come forth in the future, we would definitely advise all employees and give them a copy or let them know where the policy manual is so that they can see the latest updates. So we have all employees, when we have a new hire come in, read through it, and then they sign a statement and a receipt of acknowledgement, knowing all of the policies and procedures, the guidelines to follow, to have good employees.
Gina, did you want to add on to this general discussion?
Just that then we needed to take the personnel policy updates and incorporate them into Chapter 155, which are our personnel regulations approved by council. So that's why you have both pieces to.
So this is just a question to get clarity. Chapter 155, where it talks about the COLA, Social Security set, which is 5.9% for 22 in the budget. So since, you know, we're going to have hyperinflation because of logistics and supply and demand and everything, people are going to be worried about the money with levies and all the things we're doing. So tell me what that means in English. 5.9 and 22, does that mean I'll get a 5.9% raise or a 3% raise? Explain how that would work the way this is set up.
The exempt pay ordinance covers all the positions that are outside of a union, outside of the police, the dispatch, the fire, all the different unions that we have. So these are the exempt positions. It is the maximum pay rate for each position. It is not an individual automatic pay increase. So these are just setting the maximum pay rates, and this schedule adjusts automatically by whatever Social Security's cost of living is to keep the positions up with market.
So are you saying Social Security already, like I was looking at what they put on mine, it was 93 cents or something. So I was just curious, so you're saying it would be 5.9% next year?
Yes, Social Security's cost of living was released last week, and the increase for 2022 will be 5.9%. Correct. We built our budget with 3% wage increases, which matches most of our unions' contracts. Yeah.
So I just want to make something clear. So whatever the Social Security determines, 3%, 4%, 5%, then we are lockstep with that as far as the city goes.
No.
That's why I wanted to make sure I wasn't clear.
It's paid great, but each person is not getting that. So like right now, we have budgeted a 3% as like a performance.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to get clarity on, so I understand.
But we do not have any control over the unions. So again, as Gina said, it's a really exempt.
Which is 95 employees.
And if you remember, sometimes before, the reason that we also did this, when we discussed this, was we would be in a situation where we were trying to hire someone and the rate was higher than what was allowed in that qualification. So then we had to come back to council and have an ordinance that allowed that pay rate to be moved up. And we were kind of doing it on that. I mean, it kind of goes back to the light issue. It wasn't consistent. It wasn't, like a cloud with everybody. It was like we were piecemealing it together. This makes it so that we're doing it based on the COLA.
And then the final question is, who determines, like, the max could be 5.9, but who determines, is it in the contract?
It's Patrick, yeah.
So the administrator would have full power on how the raise goes?
Bargain collectively.
Okay, so,
Hourly.
so just for anybody that didn't understand all that, do you guys understand it now? Or is it just me that's the moron?
No, those are good.
Okay.
It was good clarification because I know that we've had questions from.
I feel so much better now.
that I've asked.
I feel better.
It's important to note, these are the caps of these positions. These aren't what these positions are paid. So
Understand.
when you look down and you see a certain position in that amount, that's not what the person in that role is paid. That's the cap of their position.
That's why I was just making sure I understood that.
Yes.
Because someone questioned me on it, I couldn't explain it.
Right. I think
So I
some
gotta
people
ask
do
the
that.
experts.
They see that, they see this, and they say, that's what we're paying our, fire battalion chief, for example, right there, that amount. That's the cap of that position.
I understand, thank you.
Just clarifying.
Did I say much to the agenda?
There's a motion to move item 5A to the agenda. I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, very good. And then you've got B.
You just discussed B, yes.
We also discussed B.
But we just voted on
You just made
A.
a motion, have you not?
Okay, so I moved to
5B.
5B.
And I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Now, the main part of the show, 4C.
Wow.
Okay, so, we did it last year, if you recall, we did it, and we were all on Zoom. And even Patrick went through, it's more on a higher level. And in the past, we had gone page by page, and line item had a line item, and I think that we got what we needed social planning.
Did we?
So what this open government allows us to do is we can go to certain pages, and I remember, Mark, you were really good last year about asking questions on certain pages and different things, and we can definitely do it like that, but we are going to take this overall approach to, and spread at a higher level, and then ask questions appropriately. And then we're going to pull it up for correct? So we'll be able to see it on the screens as well. I just, when I put it on my phone, I have trouble getting on the columns. But you also have it on your phone, and you had the details, and I know Gina and her team worked really hard to make sure that we'd be able to see it that way and to build in those stories which are so important. So, all good, so we'll leave it for Gina and Patrick.
Okay. Well, I want to thank the City Council for allowing us to use this different setup. I wanted to be able to kind of have all together the people who are here putting the budget together and be able to, I guess, see all of you without, having to look left and right and having the screen in front of me as opposed to on the side. So I appreciate this one-time adjustment to the format here. So first I want to just start with a review of the process that we go through in putting the budget together. And then Ben, at the end of this process, then we're going to go to the slides that we've prepared. So the budget process actually starts day one after the council passes the budget. When it goes into effect, we start inventorying and tabbing and marking changes regards to any kind of shifting in funding or transfers to different line items. And the principal go-to on this in administration is Kelly Hart. She's our administrative specialist. She is here this evening at the end of the dais. And Kelly works with myself as part of that interfacing with all of the department heads. So Kelly is the one who keeps all the track of all the changes, everything that's going on, because when we hit the budget cycle in like August of 21, we want to know all the things that have happened between the time the council passed the budget to the time we get there, so that we make sure that we incorporate any of those changes if needed as we move forward. So that goes on an ongoing basis. Round one, pre-budget meeting with department heads. And that is a roundtable discussion for each department. How are we doing? How is your department running? How is the spending going? What are you looking to do in the future, in the immediate, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan? What do we need to be starting to think about? And as we have those general conversations, we offer direction then as to where we think the department heads should kind of go with their budgets. Round two then is a budget meeting individually with Kelly and myself with those department heads, and we review line by line, every line in every department head's budget, and go over what it is that you're proposing, what it is historically been. And we make recommendations and adjustments at that time. Kelly is responsible for assisting the department heads in inputting the information into OpenGov and helping to create some of the storylines there. Round three is we come up with a draft then of what we feel our budget is, and that is at that point that I reach out to finance and sit with Gina and her team and where they're coming from. Mind you, Gina's team initially starts with the personnel side of the costs. We don't input that on our end, or as the department heads do. That's handled in finance. So we get together and we have a conversation of how all this starts to look and where we think we're going to go. And our objective then is to get an initial budget. And that happens in round four. We've made our adjustments. Now finance scores it. And that's the most dreaded part. We start to identify things that need to be pared from the budget. And then that involves getting back together with all of the individual department heads to talk about those things. Round five then is the final budget draft is prepared. It has to balance. And there's a lot of, in this year, there was a lot of phone calling back and forth between finance and admin, a lot of meetings, just, tweaking everything to get us down to where we needed to. Round six then is that budget is, after it's been reviewed and discussed, is now presented to the mayor and meet with him, reviewing all the ins and outs, things that he's looking for, make sure that the mayor is comfortable. and then meeting individually with the chairs of finance and the vice chair of finance to also go through that and make adjustments from all three of their inputs. And then finally, round 7 is Ben, Gina, and myself coming up with how we want to present this to City Council. So this year, what we wanted to do is present some slides that will be organized around general functions, grouping some departments together, and trying to hit the important key highlights that you would want to know about as a member of City Council as far as the big picture. So we'll start with slide 1. Emergency services. 3 new police cruisers. Right. As you may recall, we have, as a result of last year's budget and COVID, we did not do our normal 3 police cruisers. We skipped and did only 2. And we are really in need to do the 3. We've had a vehicle go down that had a lot of miles but not a lot of age on the vehicle. We also had another one that was totaled in a car accident, and getting a replacement vehicles are taking a lot of time. So 3 new police cruisers are slated. For some software technology, a CAD RMS phase 2 of this, the intent of this software system will be to lower costs over time. So it's just an initial continuation of what we had done in phase 1. 2 part-time dispatchers, and you see the numbers up there. I'm not going to read everything to you. You should be able to see that all on your screen and in the audience behind us. And a new ambulance. New ambulance is approximately $600,000. And as it relates to how we're paying for that, that's going to be one of the key takeaways when I get through these slides to come back to. But for purposes of this slide, you'll note that this ambulance is being financed over 2 years. And then also a Medic 1 replacement vehicle, $25,000. Next slide. Parks and Leisure. Whitwer Ball Field. The ball field needs extensive work due to improper installation of materials a number of years back. The ball field doesn't drain and remains wet and largely unusable. So we would like to address that in the next year. Dogwood Pool House Splash Pad. This is something the council has been interested in for some time. We have submitted our capital budget request to the state of Ohio, asking for a 3rd phase of park improvements, and we have slated this facility as the need for that. This would be, we're asking for $750,000 from the state. We believe the cost to the pool house and splash pad is closer to $2 million for a complete redo. So we first have to see how much we're going to get from the state, which Senator Schuring and Representative Olsleger have made those requests of us. We should hear something right around the first of the year as to where we stand with that. Arrowhead, storm drainage, a building demo, and some new concrete. There is a building down there. It would be referred to as the, I guess, the old pro shop. Has significant termite damage. Needs to be demoed, and the pad underneath it is good. It's all concrete, in good order. Would make a great place for the golf carts to stage as people come in. But then we will need to improve the storm drainage around there and some concrete. There were a significant number of trip hazards there that we have been working on and completing restoration of. We would like to resurface the Glenwood pickleball courts. We believe that in our initial foray, it's been a tremendous success, but if we were to resurface these in a different manner, we believe that we can get 2 extra courts there from 4 to 6. The park department also has a need for a new zero-turn mower, a plow truck for the street department in the winter, and then Arrowhead also needs an electrical service upgrade. Next, general government. So all in all, when we look through, you're going to start to see now some of the personnel changes or needs. In engineering, we're looking to finally hire a design engineer. You know that the engineer has been to you, talked with us before. We created this exempt position. We've just never been in a position to fill it due to some changing in personnel as a result of a restructuring by admin. We have some positions that we were able to eliminate to create some additional salary cap that would be able to go towards this design engineer. We would also like to fill the Deputy Director of Finance position that we'd be looking at a higher date, hopefully of April 1. A full-time assistant clerk for City Council, March 1st. And then as it relates to all of this, an ARC GIS license and equipment so that we can do some of our own GIS services here rather than relying upon the county. Next, streets and sewers. Curb repair and replacement, $100,000. You all are aware of the story that I told concerning the new equipment that we have and that we've been able to do hundreds and hundreds of linear feet of new curb. You saw that out on East Maple. We tend to take that around, use it everywhere else. It will give our employees the opportunity to do different types of work depending on what the weather conditions are. And so the $100,000 would be for actual concrete, since the labor and the equipment are already included. Asphalt paver and associated equipment, and financed over 4 years. So in talking with our street department, we believe that one way that we can help get more bang for our buck in regard to paving streets is to actually have some of the equipment, not all of the equipment, but a piece of equipment and its accessories that would allow us to do street paving of 14-foot wide section. Now, in talking with the engineer, we believe that the funds that we have available to just do general paving of $350,000 a year is in the long term not going to keep us up with the streets. We have to find ways to do more with less. So if we were to take as an example a street that I've been out on, Rose Lane Southwest from Maine and going back, I don't know, till I guess where Tanglewood comes in, there's a straight shot. If you looked at that street, there's a lot of spider cracking all through it. The road's deteriorating, it's breaking. All right, if I wanted to do, say, 200 linear feet of that, 14 feet, because it's really in one lane, to put that as part of our general paving, you know, for a contractor to mobilize, to go down there to do 200 feet, you know, we're not going to get a real value for our money. There's a lot of built-in costs with that. But this would be a project that we could do internally. And since we already have, you know, we have rollers that will roll the asphalt, we already got that. We already got dump trucks galore that can handle the asphalt. We just need that piece that the asphalt goes into, makes it come out in that 14-foot wide section, and can go do that. And then there's an attachment that goes onto it that we would use first to mill down the inch and a half. This is not designed for a rebuild of a road, where you're taking it down like what we did up on North Main, taking it down 6 inches. This will just help the engineer be able to address a lot of problem streets where pieces of it are coming apart. It's too costly to mobilize general contractors there, and we don't want to go back to the old chip and seal and trying to do that, which was a disaster. So this would be important then also to deal with our alleys. We are not paying attention to our alleys. We are not surfacing our alleys. They do not meet the list. If we have, you know, we're going down the list of things to do, streets that have lots of traffic on it beat an alley that has, you know, 10 cars that go on it. So it doesn't mean that we should neglect them forever. Alleys are 14 feet wide. That is exactly the width that this machine handles, and it could enable us to do what we're going to, if council would approve this, our first alley that we would do would be Baker Court. We've already had it surveyed, we've been cleaning up the roadside growth on it, but this would allow us to do that. We could also do a parking lot with it in pieces and put it together. So over at the fire station, we have a need for that as well.
You know how like when you have approaches coming into driveways, maybe blacktop approaches, is that something you can do? I mean, are you for hire?
No, we're not for hire. But this would, just basically put the street up to where the curb and gutter is, wherever that is. If it's just curb, no gutter, or if there's no curb and gutter, it would go right up to the lawn. All right, so
That's excellent.
we think that the return on investment of this is probably the 4 years. As we break into this and do more and more, it will accelerate. And our department is very excited about the possibility to do that. They appreciate everybody believing in their abilities and what they're capable of doing, and we're just, I think, beginning to scratch the surface there. Along with that, we're looking for 2 general laborers at the general labor entry position, 1 in street and 1 in sewers. Zimber ditch improvements, that's part of the partnership with Stark Parks in the state of Ohio. We have to budget for that in case they decide to budget for that. Concrete street repairs, glasses on. Painting of traffic poles, brick pavers on Main Street, and crack sealing. Next. Capital improvements, major projects, salt dome. All right, so we know that this has been ongoing for a lot longer than I've been here, but there is a genuine need, and soon to be probably a formal request that from EPA that we relocate our salt dome off of our water treatment plant property. So we're looking at the cost for that. We would want to finance that over 8 years, and we'll be looking at, in some of the budget, there's going to be professional services for design, which is what we think we can get to right out of the gate in 2022. The Charlotte Street Corridor project, this is moving in forward in conjunction with Diebold, Nixdorf, and the schools. As you know, the dirt is moving. That project is looking to be open for business. Diebold next year, the school the following year. We've been in discussions with property owner of the former Spitzer property, and we'll be coming to a conclusion then as far as how much right-of-way we're having to buy there. So that's moving forward next year. The Stratavon sanitary sewer extension, a number of years ago, the current engineer, who when he was in the private sector, made a recommendation on the streetscape plan that went forward at that time to put in the sanitary sewer line underneath Main Street at Stratavon and going across. At some point when that time would come and we would need to put this sewer line in, we didn't want to have to tear up Apple Grove. I keep saying Apple Grove. Tear up Main Street again. So that's in place. This would be just taking it from the end of Stratavon, picking up the businesses and residences that are down there that are on septic systems, adding them in, and taking anything else that would be around there and tying them into our system. We have been in consultation with the Stark County Health Department that handles this, and they know they are being, they're urging us to get moving on this project so that we can get rid of these septic systems that are down there. 2022 annual street paving and a 10th Street Northeast sanitary roadway improvement project. So those are the biggies. Water. Part-time backflow surveyor and inspector. So we have a backflow system, and in delving into that in an important way, I don't feel that we have done a very good job of keeping track of our backflows and what the status of them is. So we believe with what council and mayor's office put forward last year, where we were contracting this service out as far as, hey, you call this number, these people come out, they're going to load it into their tablet, it's going to get uploaded into our system. But for businesses out there, we're going to have to go out and we conduct a survey that is required under EPA, and we believe that the most reasonable way to do this is just hire somebody part-time that would be able to go out there and complete that in the season. Chloride monitoring wells. One of the other issues that we're dealing with as it relates to ongoing water needs is the potential for the rising content of salt, we'll just call it that, sodium chloride in the water tables. And we know that that's Northeast Ohio, that is one of the difficulties that we have, is that everybody uses salt too, and that all rolls downstream, so to speak, and gets into our well system. We're not at mission critical levels yet, but we could be. So we want to start exploring for a place to put a new well where we can tap into some water that has very little, if any, sodium content. So we have already conducted the analysis. We had 2 firms look at it. We picked the lowest cost firm to go out and start putting that together. And we have test wells, which are what these are. They're going to be to go find that. Sludge lagoon cleaning, we've talked about that before. That's an ongoing thing, and we just have to keep cranking it out. A valve turning truck, financed over a 2-year period. Again, EPA requires us to turn valves every 5 years, and there's specialized equipment in a truck that is necessary to continue with that program. One we have is very dated. Valley Drive waterline replacement, and then the Glenwood waterline replacement phase 2.
What's a valve turning truck? Like, what does that mean when you say you have to turn a valve?
Well, it's a specialized truck with the right type of equipment that can go down into the opening in the street or in the grass, wherever this hole is, and it has to go down very deep to be able to turn the valve and deal with all the water that might come out of that. So it's not a clean thing. There's generally a lot of water that's discharged, and this assists with that. But I can get Brian Hill to give us a more detailed explanation if you like. Next. Okay, so that's the slides. The key takeaways as it relates to this, and Gina has prepared a few pages that we inserted late into your packet, but talks about a number of things, but I want to just kind of quickly hit the big parts of this. First has to do with carryovers. Carryovers are an important piece of the finance puzzle for, I'm sure, 3 big reasons that we could think of. First, as it relates to when the city receives most of its funding is through income tax, and people have till April 15th to pay their income tax. I'm just going from my notes right now.
Okay.
I'll direct you to the narrative page. But
Thank you.
so I think in the 2022 budget brief that you have, what I'm going to reference is in that last paragraph that says target carryover. So we have to have a carryover in order to start the year, in order to be able to make all kinds of payments that happen prior to April 15th, which is largely payroll. But it also informs 2 other important parts. When we're audited by the state of Ohio and its delegates, we look for that carryover balance being enough to start your year. And if you take your carryover balance is too low and you're just hitting it on a wing and a prayer, We'll hear about it at audit time, I'm quite sure. In addition, bonding agencies that assign us a bond rating also look at this carryover amount, and they want to make sure that it's adequate to deal with the city's needs. So under best practices, we are trying to obtain 25% revenues for the general fund as a carryover amount. And with the work that we have done here, Gina has been able to engineer that exactly to the penny. But that was cutting a lot of stuff out of the budget to get there, as we'll see. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room there. And then in the water fund, we need to account for 100% of expenses on the utility fund. So those are our objectives as we look at this. You heard me mention about financing versus non-financing. We don't have the ability to pay cash. We don't have $600,000 to go buy an ambulance. So should we not buy the ambulance? Should we allow the ambulance to not work and not be able to respond? I don't think anybody here, wants that. Likewise with, the asphalt machine, again, don't have $279,000 that we can take and pay cash for. So this is our reality, is that we're going to need to do, if we want to move forward with some of these things, we will have to finance them. And interest rates are extremely low right now, so that helps with the decision-making process, perhaps. Also in your packet is a City of North Canton Certificate of Resources Appropriations and Fund Balances, is the headline, and this tells you for 2022 what we are estimating the original permanent revenue budget to be and the permanent appropriations budget by fund. So that is there for your review. In addition, we have the 2020, this was in the, mine it is blue and white. I think Ben copied it in gray and white. This is the budget compared to 2021. So 2022 to 2021. Just a separate sheet on the net result of the personnel changes, 2 part-time dispatchers, 1 full-time person in the finance department, 1 full-time in city council, and should be 2 in street, correct? 1 street, 1 sewer. Yep.
Hey, Pat, on the ambulance for $600K, I was just thinking, do they do anything like leasing on any of those special vehicles, like a police officer car, instead of buying it, leasing it for a couple of years and then turning it back in? Is that even an option, or would that be financially fiscal? They'd be able to do that?
I can tell you that it's certainly available, but I'll let Gina address regarding the financing or leasing.
As far as the patrol cars, they are pretty heavy-duty cars and custom ordered for the most part, equipped. I know that our police department here, when they are finished with them, they do offer them to other departments to reuse. But as far as a leasing company, I'm not sure as many miles as we put on the cars and rotate them and maintain them, that they would be leasable.
And then the fire truck or the ambulance, hypothetically.
Yeah, typically the chief tries to keep those ambulances a long time. I think the one that we're replacing here is a 2012? Is it 2015? 2012. 2012 ambulance, that's 9 years. It's got a lot of miles on it. They don't make the parts for it anymore, and the maintenance of it just starts to eat you up. So on a lease, you would find that, you might not be able to lease it for that length of time, Dom. Like a car, you might only be able to lease it for 3 years, and then you're back into another lease payment at a high price. If we finance it over those 3 years, get it paid for, then at least those 6 years are able to recoup that. And this year, Gina and I, we had the chief, the battalion chief, work on a schedule to kind of give Gina an idea what is coming down the road as far as replacements of any other vehicles over there, so that she could find an appropriate time period over which she felt comfortable financing it.
The one that we have in the budget to replace next year is a 2006.
Sorry, 2006, even worse. All right, next item in your packet, but wait, there's more. 2022 fund transfers. So you see the amount that we have to transfer from fund to fund. And you should note, we're going to talk about two things there. One, just as an observation, when you look at your total budget, and it says that your total budget is like $56 million, that includes about $12,392,000 in transfers. So that gets counted twice. You really need to back that out to know what your true budget kind of is. But you should note the transfer to fire and EMS. So, that for 2022, that is going to be $1.3 million that we're going to need to transfer over there to continue operations. It would be ideal if we didn't have to do that, but that's what our reality is going to be for 2022. So wanted to make you aware of that. Next item looks like this, 2022 budget, items cut or delayed to balance the budget. So there were some personnel that we decided not to add on. There were some items that we pared back, like on crack sealing. We went with 20,000 instead of 45. So we reduced some items and we had to eliminate some items. So this is where, after all of this is presented to you and you start to go into this and start to digest this and start to work through it and collaborate amongst yourselves, and as the weeks roll forward and you come back with changes that you want to make, that is something that you guys ultimately have the final say on. But I did not put anything in there for a specific sidewalk program. I don't believe that the council and the mayor have settled upon a established policy. But I have news that I've shared with some of you, but I'd like to share with all of you. So in conversations with our street department on other subjects, they happen to bring up among the things that they can do is sidewalk. And after about 4 or 5 words went past that, I said, whoa, wait a minute, back up. Sidewalks? You can do sidewalks? Well, what do you mean you can do a sidewalk? Well, we can't do, we're not going to go out and put in 500 feet of sidewalk. That would be well beyond the number of people we have that do it. But to the extent that we have some sidewalks that are in not great shape, that need, 4 or 5 squares here, 5, 6 squares over there, that kind of thing, these smaller jobs, they feel very confident in their abilities to be able to do them. So what I did was started them with some funds that we have left yet this year and started them out working on replacing some sidewalk squares as a pilot program to see if they truly are as good as they say they are. And we know that some of our local contractors are willing to come in and teach some of these skills to our people. So we would, if necessary, we would certainly take them up on that. So we've left some money in the budget for just concrete, to buy concrete, whether you use it as a curb and gutter or whether you use it as a sidewalk, is totally up to whatever comes in. So keep that in mind, that while we still have some good weather, if there's a couple other squares you're aware of, to let me know. But we've done a couple already.
Pat, once they get used to doing a couple pads, they'll be able to do 500 feet. They really will. It's the same thing, so that's a great idea.
They have all the forming equipment.
That's all it is forms and then
So,
finish work. So.
I saw one done on Apple Grove today, 1 square, just in the middle of nowhere. So, and I bet they did that.
Yeah, that was mentioned by a member of council, and it was significantly tilted, large gap. That was a great one to start with. Let's see what you can do. See if you can make it look like it.
I saw it today.
Okay.
And it was wet. They must have just poured it today.
Yep. And they poured some outside City Hall as well. There's some squares there.
It's on the north side of Apple Grove, halfway down from my office there.
Ward 1 gets everything, don't they?
No, well, I'm
spent a lot of money the last few years in hiring contractors to do that. And
The main thing is that our people can be scheduled, they're accessible to us as far as the future. We don't gotta wait, oh, it's gonna be next week, and it's 3 weeks later, it's a month before you know the weather's turning. That's the more critical aspect of this. We control our own destiny with our own workforce.
one of the things we'll do too is, like, for the paving, the 350,000. One of the changes we've made since I came is I want that to be asphalt.
Yes.
Before, it was, half was concrete work, and we were paying through the nose for an asphalt guy to sub it out to a concrete sub, and we had to wait for the concrete to get done. This year, our street department's looking at our tentative list, and they're gonna go out even this fall and start in, so as soon as the snow melts, like it did this year, we can be paving.
You get good days, you can do it. And as long as we have a skill set, it seems like we do, or have an apprentice program, each stand up to it.
Not to mention about all the sewer grates. I mean, I don't know how many we replaced. We have like, what, 2,200? I think we replaced, how many, like 500 in the last 2-3 years? I mean, a ton of
Rebuilding
them.
those catch basins, yeah.
The catch
slope eats away
basin.
the top
Right.
2 inches, and then-
I mean, I know a lot of them have been taken care of already, so that's all infrastructure. It's not real sexy, but I'll tell you, it's real integral for stopping floodings and so forth.
Then on our North Main Street, they did 34 basins and sections of curb before
Right.
we had our paving guy come out and literally just pave.
I watched it. It was beautiful. Beautiful thing.
Right. All you need is a fixed cost of what concrete is then, at that point, because as these guys get busy, their price goes up. So you can't be waiting on other people. If you know how to do it yourself, all your fixed prices, then your concrete. So that's a great idea.
It's not on a container waiting to be delivered.
And finally, Ms. Warren, in your packet, is the capital expenses in excess of 50,000 for the 2022 Border Control agenda. As you recall, this was a new idea brought to us by the finance director, her experience in Louisville. And having done it for a year, I got to tell you, it was tremendous savings that the city experienced as a result of this. Why do I say that? Well, typically in the past, every time one of these things would move through the legislative agenda of City Council, they all come out at different times. We'd have a Border Control meeting for it. And with that Border Control meeting comes a lot of administrative expense. Public meeting notices, a court reporter that has to come and take minutes, transcribed of every meeting. Without having to do that, we calculated that it was about 15 meetings last year that we would have had to expend those funds for. And all that time, it's in your budget. You know we're going to do it just as part of the initial Border Control. It all still has to move through legislatively, but it just goes to the Border Control pre-approved. So that is on your list of projects. So again, tonight's intent, I know I've talked too long, but tonight's intent was to give you a big, rounded, overall kind of view of the things that we looked at, give you enough meat on the bones for you guys to take this now, start to work with it, come back, call, text, visit Gina, myself, with questions. We'll be glad to answer them. Or if you're going to want to ask the questions at the council meeting next week, if you can give us a heads up of what they are, we can make sure that we have the answers rather than postpone it to another meeting when we have to get the answers. So with that, thank you, Ms. Warren, for the opportunity to present.
Very good. Well done.
Any questions right now?
Nope.
Okay. Gina, anything you want to say?
I do want, if you can entertain me with the OpenGov website, I just want to familiarize you again, because I know it's been a whole year since we visited there. It doesn't capture everything on your phone, unfortunately. I'm not sure it's mobile ready, but it is computer. So when you go to the link or you go to right straight from our website, it'll take you to this page. Anything that is underlined has a document behind it. So if you want to click on capital improvements, that's a big one. That's a list of all of our capital improvements that we have, general, not including the water or the sewer. And then if you want to maybe go, yes, go ahead and scroll down. So it'll give you some prior years, and if you, Ben, can you scroll up onto the graph? If you hover over those, it'll give you some numbers, but if you click on that, and don't do this right now, but you can click into those and find details. Or if you're not a picture person and you want the numbers, then you scroll down to the data below, and same thing, if there's an arrow, you can click on the arrow to expand, like maybe click on intergovernmental. Well, there, whichever. It'll tell you what is that intergovernmental. There were grants that we received. So there's so much detail in here that for us to try to print this, it wasn't built to be printed. It was built to be an interactive online tool. So we can make PDFs of a static picture of what's in there, and that'll help you to be able to have pages and turn through them and at least have something in your hands. We can do that. So we'll work on that for you for first reading. But I really want to engage you in the online tool. Can you go back to just the main page?
Gina, when you say that, is that if we call you and say, can you print this page for us?
Well, I think what I'm going to try to do is just put all the pages in a PDF static document, and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
So that you have all the pages, but again, then you'll have to kind of know where everything lives in that printed document. Where here, if you say, I want to look at the fire fund, you click on the fire fund.
Right.
So it is a little bit more organized on your screen. Then the one that we didn't really talk about is the 219. Last year it was called the CARES Act Fund. These are the coronavirus relief funds. The CARES Act, I think it's a little bit even further. Yep. So the coronavirus relief funds that are allocated to the city of North Canton this year and in 21 and next year in 22 will receive nearly 1.8 million. They're very restricted, where last year's CARES Act funds were do what you need to do to protect your community, mitigate COVID, get everything back open in order as much as you can. So we bought a lot of personal protective equipment. We did a lot of adjustments to buildings to make them social distancing or disinfectant and a lot of those things. Well, we can't do any of that with the ARPA funds. They're called American Rescue Plan, so ARPA funds. So they're restricted to infrastructure and extensions, which are water and sewer. So the two projects that we've identified for those are the Glenwood water line replacement and the Stratavon sanitary sewer. It'll cover a piece of each one of those. It's $1.8 million that we don't pay anything to have, but we're providing services for extension of water and sewer. So that was just one I wanted to touch on. We have until the end of 2024 to spend those funds. So with those projects, I believe we plan on starting them and maybe even completing them in 22. So we'll be ahead of that schedule and we'll be able to do our reporting. And then if there is another allocation, we'll be ready for that.
Great.
Thank you for that explanation, because I was trying to get on my phone and do it, I called Ben this morning, and I don't have a computer accessible to me every day to do this, so I guess the bottom line is we can also come visit you, and if we needed something printed out, you can provide it to us. I didn't, we're used to document, and we talked about it last year, Mark, especially, but we just page through it, and you saw the detail, and you could really ask questions, and it's a working document on the floor. This is fantastic as far as technology. It's there all the time. It's burdensome to print a report with. That's probably the only downfall for this. But thank you for explaining that, and we'll be able to do this a little better on mine. Because I was trying on my phone, and Seth and I were talking about it. He's really on maybe an iPad. I don't know.
Well, that was one of my suggestions to Gina is that you get council iPads. I mean, there's no reason they have to be looking on their phone at all this stuff. And they're affordable now that every one of you guys should have an iPad. I mean, it just makes sense. So I don't know if that's in the budget. That was one of my suggestions for the people that are coming in. I think that would be a
Good suggestion.
I mean,
We used to have computers, and it went.
those weren't really functional the way we would like them, but an iPad would read it. I mean, all the stuff you're doing, I'm able to read on my iPad, so I think it's great.
So Gina, how do you anticipate next week, how do you anticipate going through it? So we come back with any questions. What was your thought?
Well, we did add a lot of words, we call them stories. So every page, which is every fund or every department that you'll click on, has a story. Where last year we were beginning to build those and trying to explain those. And so those have really expanded and come a long way. They should be pretty self-explanatory. And I guess that is probably where your questions will come. Either something that's relative to what Patrick explained tonight, or something that is not explained well in one of those stories. Beyond that, I mean, we can edit those stories. Again, like you said, it's a living document, so we can add, if you have the question, the community has the question. And so we want to be able to explain whatever it is that needs to be explained in the budget. And then again, it's just figuring out where everything lives. The budget brief is a pretty good summary of the main particles that are in there. But again, it is a big puzzle. So all the pieces have to fit together.
And if I could just add one other item as it relates to OpenGov, and as it may or may not be an inconvenience to the council in using it, I can tell you that the payoff is in spades for the department heads to use it. Because before, the process was what you had, that booklet. And we never knew from day to day what was left over. All right, we put in a PO. Where's the running balance? How much do I have left? Did that check clear for that PO? And it was a call where? Finance. Answering calls all the time, every day. Now, this is available this way. It's instant. As soon as they process whatever it is they're processing over there, whatever they do, the magic.
We've integrated OpenGov with our accounting software. And so if
that magic wand.
Play around enough on the website, you'll find the reports, and the reports are year-to-date actual for 2021. You can go in there and see everything we've done through this current year, the updated budget for this year.
I have the availability now on the computer for time, so it's very accessible to what you're showing. It just makes sense for your department heads to be able to do it.
Okay, I think, Stephanie, to answer your question, next Monday night, in a moment, I'm going to ask for a motion to place this on the agenda in a second, a motion and a second. Monday night, we'll have our first reading. Prior to the vote, if there are any questions, we'll pose those at that time, and at the conclusion of the question period, we'll make a motion to pass the first reading. Sound acceptable? Yep. All right. Having said that, I'd entertain a motion to place item 4C on Monday night's agenda. It's been moved. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. I think that, and I'm going to look toward our all-knowing clerk. I believe that concludes our agenda for this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been moved. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.